On Christmas morning 2024, Jennifer Anderson was found dead in her bed with 3 gunshot wounds to the chest in her modest single-story home on Billings West Side. Emma Anderson, her 17-year-old daughter, made a frantic 911 call at 6:27 a.m. claiming that an intruder had broken in and murdered her mother while she had terrified in her bedroom. The small Montana city of Billings, accustomed to harsh winters, but not to brutal holiday homicides, was stunned by the violence that had erupted in what neighbors described as a quiet, ordinary household. Investigators arriving at the snow-covered crime scene found the victim still in her bed, the sheets soaked with blood, and a window in a living room that appeared to have been forced open from the outside. Want more shocking true crime stories delivered weekly? Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. Now, let's get back to the story. Emma Anderson sat wrapped in a shock blanket on the living room couch, her blonde hair disheveled and her blue eyes vacant as she repeatedly told officers she had been asleep when she heard gunshots. She claimed to have stayed hidden in her room for nearly an hour before finding the courage to venture out and discover her mother's body, at which point she immediately called 911. The teenager's account seemed plausible at first glance. The forced window, missing valuables, including Jennifer's Wallen watch, and Emma's convincing display of shock, all pointed to a home invasion gone tragically wrong. Detective Adrian Mitchell, a 15-year veteran of the Billings Police Department, noted in his initial report that the girl appeared genuinely traumatized, though he would later recall that something about her demeanor felt rehearsed. Jennifer Anderson's bedroom showed signs of a violent struggle, the nightstand overturned, a lamp shattered on the floor, and defensive wounds on her hands indicating she had awakened and fought for her life. The murder weapon, a .30-06 hunting rifle that belonged to Jennifer's late husband, William, was found discarded in the backyard near the fence line, partially buried in a snow drift, as the killer had attempted to hide it while fleeing. 3 spent shell casings were recovered from the bedroom floor, and the coroner would later determine that any one of the 3 shots would have been fatal, suggesting an attack fueled by rage rather than necessity. The timing of the murder, between 4 and 6:27 a.m. on Christmas morning, according to the medical examiner's preliminary assessment, added a particularly disturbing dimension to an already tragic scene. In the rugged landscape of Billings, Montana, where the wide open spaces can feel both liberating and isolating, the Anderson home suddenly became the epicenter of the city's attention. Local news crews gathered outside the police tape as neighbors stood in shocked clusters on their front lawns, Christmas decorations creating a surreal contrast to the grim proceedings. Emma was taken to the station for further questioning, ostensibly to get her away from the traumatic scene. Though she was not considered a suspect at this early stage, Detective Mitchell ordered a thorough canvass of the neighborhood, hoping someone might have seen or heard something unusual in the pre-dawn hours of Christmas Day, never expecting that a neighbor's doorbell camera would soon become the linchpin of the entire investigation. What do you think was the motive? Let us know in the comments below. The Anderson home, a modest 3-bedroom ranch-style house with fading green siding, had been decorated for Christmas with multicolored lights along the eaves and a small artificial tree visible through the front window. Inside, wrapped presents still sat undisturbed beneath the tree, gifts that would never be opened, including several with tags reading, "To the best mom, Emma." The kitchen counter held evidence of Christmas Eve preparations, cookie cutters, a rolling pin dusted with flour, and a plate of decorated Christmas cookies covered with plastic wrap. These domestic details stood in stark contrast to the violence that had erupted just hours later, creating a crime scene that even hardened investigators found unsettling in its juxtaposition of holiday cheer and deadly violence. Jennifer's bedroom at the end of the short hallway had become a horrific final resting place for the 42-year-old science teacher. Blood spatter analysis would later suggest that the first shot had been fired from the doorway while Jennifer was sleeping, with the subsequent shots delivered at closer range after she had awakened and attempted to defend herself. The hunting rifle, a Remington 700 with a walnut stock that William used for deer hunting in the mountains outside Billings, required significant force to operate its bolt-action mechanism between shots. This detail would later become significant as prosecutors questioned whether a panicked home invader would have taken the time to chamber multiple rounds rather than fleeing after the first shot, especially if the intruder was supposedly surprised by finding someone at home. As the initial crime scene investigation continued into Christmas afternoon, the Anderson family's personal history began to emerge through interviews with neighbors and colleagues. Jennifer had been raising Emma alone since her husband, William, died a heart attack 5 years earlier, a tragedy that had reportedly brought mother and daughter closer together. Neighbors described Jennifer as strict but loving, a dedicated mother who coached Emma's middle school science club and rarely missed her high school volleyball games. Several mentioned that Jennifer had seemed concerned about Emma's behavior in recent months, with one neighbor recalling an overheard argument about Emma's curfew just days before the murder. Emma's initial statement described a night of normal Christmas Eve activities, baking cookies with her mother, watching It's a Wonderful Life, and go to bed around 10:30 p.m. She claimed to have slept soundly until gunshots woke her shortly after 6 a.m., at which point she hid in her closet until she was certain the intruder had left the house. Her bedroom door had been closed all night, she insisted, and she had seen and heard nothing until the gunshots, a critical detail that would soon be contradicted by unexpected evidence. The teenager's demeanor shifted between moments of emotional breakdown and periods of eerie calm as she recounted finding her mother's blood-soaked body, a pattern that experienced investigators recognized as potentially inconsistent with genuine trauma. By nightfall on Christmas Day, as most families in Billings were finishing their holiday dinners, the Anderson home remained an active crime scene, bathed in the harsh glow of police floodlights. Technicians meticulously processed evidence late into the night, documenting blood patterns, collecting fibers, and casting impressions of footprints found in the snow outside the allegedly forced window. Emma spent the night at her aunt's house across town, still maintaining her story of hiding from an intruder and expressing appropriate grief over her mother's death. Detective Mitchell, however, was already requesting warrant access to Emma's cell phone records and social media accounts, following standard procedure in homicide investigations, even when family members appear to be victims rather than suspects. Jennifer Anderson had been a fixture at Billings West High School for 15 years, where she taught AP chemistry and coached the school's nationally recognized science Olympiad team. Colleagues described her as passionate about education, the kind of teacher who arrived early and stayed late, often spending weekends helping students with special projects or college applications. Her classroom was known for its engaging demonstrations and hands-on experiments, with former students frequently returning during college breaks to thank her for inspiring their scientific careers. Jennifer had received the Montana Science Educator of the Year award just 2 years before her death, with a citation praising her ability to make complex concepts accessible while challenging her students to exceed their own expectations. Beyond her professional accomplishments, Jennifer was remembered as a devoted single mother who had reorganized her entire life after her husband's death to ensure Emma's well-being remained her top priority. The walls of their Billings home were covered with family photos, Jennifer and Emma hiking in the nearby Beartooth Mountains, fishing along the Yellowstone River, and smiling together at her middle school graduation. Neighbors recalled Jennifer turning down dating opportunities and social invitations if they conflicted with Emma's activities, telling friends that Emma needs stability right now, not a parade of new people in her life. Her dedication extended to learning to cook proper meals, mastering the intricacies of teenage girl fashion choices, and becoming both mother and father to her daughter while maintaining her demanding career as an educator. Jennifer's sister, Catherine Anderson Walsh, shared during a tearful interview that her sister had recently expressed concerns about changes in Emma's behavior and friend group. Jen called me about 2 weeks before Christmas, worried that Emma was pulling away from her and keeping secrets, Catherine told Detective Mitchell. She said she'd become defensive about her phone, was breaking curfew, and seemed to be lying about where she was going after school. Jen thought she might be using drugs or falling into a bad crowd, but she never imagined anything that could lead to this. Born and raised in Billings, Jennifer had deep roots in the Montana community, where generations of Andersons had lived since the early 1900s. Her father had worked the railroads while her mother taught elementary school, instilling in Jennifer a strong work ethic and value for education that shaped her career choice. After earning her chemistry degree at Montana State University and completing a master's in education, Jennifer had returned to her hometown specifically to give back to the community that had supported her. The Anderson family name was respected throughout Billings, making the shocking Christmas murder all the more incomprehensible to those who had known Jennifer throughout her life. Jennifer's passion for the outdoors was legendary among her friends and students, with summer break typically finding her leading wilderness expeditions for the local Sierra Club chapter or working on environmental conservation projects. Her hunting rifles, including the weapon that would ultimately end her life, were always properly secured in a gun safe, used only for ethical hunting trips, where she taught Emma about respecting nature and harvesting only what was needed. Jennifer was known to donate much of her deer meat to the local food bank each year, seeing hunting as a connection to Montana's heritage rather than simply a sport or hobby. The irony that her own carefully maintained hunting rifle would become the instrument of her death would not be lost on prosecutors building their case against her daughter. The Christmas Eve before her murder had followed traditions Jennifer had maintained since Emma was a small child, cutting a fresh Christmas tree from a permitted area in the nearby national forest, baking their secret recipe sugar cookies, and watching classic holiday movies together. Text messages from Jennifer's phone recovered during the investigation showed her reaching out to family members with warm holiday wishes and confirming plans for Christmas dinner the following day. Her final text message, sent to her sister at 9:48 p.m. on Christmas Eve, read, "Merry Christmas. Emma and I had a nice evening baking cookies. Looking forward to seeing everyone tomorrow. Love you." In the award-winning faculty lounge at Billings West High School, a makeshift memorial appeared spontaneously when news of Jennifer's death reached her colleagues, growing to include candles, photos, and dozens of heartfelt notes from current and former students. "Mizzy showed me I could do things I never thought possible," read one card from a former student now studying chemistry at MIT. "She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." The school's principal described Jennifer as a teacher everyone wanted their child to have, challenging but kind, demanding but supportive, the rare educator who connected with every student regardless of their academic ability or background. The autopsy revealed that Jennifer had been in excellent physical condition for a woman of 42, with no health issues that would have shortened her life expectancy. The medical examiner noted that had she not been murdered, Jennifer could reasonably have expected another 30 to 40 years of life, decades in which she might have seen Emma graduate college, walked her down the aisle, held grandchildren, and continued inspiring generations of students. This potential future, erased in seconds by 3 rifle rounds, was emphasized by prosecutors as they built their case around a magnitude of what had been stolen from Jennifer, from her students, and from the Billings community. The brutal manner of Jennifer's death contrasted sharply with the gentle, patient woman described by everyone who knew her. Medical evidence indicated that she had awakened during the attack, with defensive wounds on her hands and arms showing she had tried to shield herself from the shots. Blood spatter patterns on the headboard and walls suggested she had been sitting up in bed when the final shot was fired at close range, likely looking directly at her killer in the final moments of her life. This detail would haunt those who knew the case intimately. The realization that Jennifer Anderson died looking into the face of her own daughter, the child she had devoted her life to raising after her husband's death. Jennifer's funeral, delayed until after the new year due to the ongoing investigation, drew over 800 mourners from across Montana and neighboring states. Former students traveled from as far away as Boston and San Francisco to pay their respects to the teacher who had shaped their futures. The high school gymnasium, the only venue in Billings large enough to accommodate the crowd, was filled to capacity as colleagues, students, and community members shared stories of Jennifer's kindness, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to education. Emma Anderson was notably absent from the service, her arrest having occurred days earlier, a fact that sent shocked whispers through the gathering. Despite the efforts of Jennifer's sister to focus the service on celebrating her sister's life rather than the circumstances of her death, Detective Adrian Mitchell arrived at the Anderson home 20 minutes after Emma's 911 call, navigated his unmarked police vehicle through the nearly empty streets of Billings on Christmas morning. The detective, known for his methodical approach and attention to detail, immediately noted several inconsistencies at the scene that triggered his investigative instincts. The allegedly forced window showed pry marks on the outside frame, but the pattern seemed unusual, too neat, too deliberate, as if someone had studied break-ins from television rather than committing an actual forced entry. The house showed no signs of being ransacked, with only Jennifer's wallet and watch missing despite several valuable electronics, sitting in plain sight in the living room. Initial forensic processing revealed a crime scene that would yield crucial evidence in the coming days. The hunting rifle found in the backyard snow bore no fingerprints, having been wiped clean, but later testing would reveal traces of Emma's DNA on the bolt action mechanism. Gunshot residue tests performed on Emma's hands at the station came back positive, a fact she initially explained by saying she had checked her mother's pulse and touched the area around her wounds. The medical examiner's preliminary report indicated that Jennifer had been shot between 4 and 5:30 a.m. based on body temperature and blood coagulation, contradicting Emma's claim that she had heard shots just before calling 911 at 6:27 a.m. As uniformed officers conducted the neighborhood canvass, a crucial piece of evidence emerged that would ultimately break the case wide open. Trevor Phillips, who lived in the house directly across the street, mentioned to officers that his Ring doorbell camera had a view of the front of the Anderson home, including Emma's bedroom window. "I installed it after someone stole our Christmas packages last year," Phillips explained, "and it records whenever there's motion on the street or when someone comes to our door." The footage, which Detective Mitchell immediately requested, revealed a critical contradiction to Emma's story. Her bedroom light could be seen turning on and off multiple times between 4:12 a.m. and 5:48 a.m. during the exact time frame when she claimed to be asleep until being awakened by gunshots. The Ring camera footage became the investigation's breakthrough moment, providing irrefutable evidence that someone was active in Emma's room during the critical time period. The camera's night vision capability clearly showed Emma's bedroom window illuminating and darkening repeatedly, with particularly noticeable activity around 4:40 a.m., approximately when the medical examiner believed Jennifer had been killed. Detective Mitchell obtained a search warrant for Emma's phone and laptop based on this contradictory evidence, suspecting that the motive for the crime might be found in her communications. The warrant also allowed officers to return to the Anderson home and conduct a more thorough search of Emma's bedroom, where they discovered blood-spattered clothing hidden inside a ventilation duct accessible by removing a register in her closet floor. Emma's initial police interview, conducted by Detective Mitchell while she was still considered a witness rather than a suspect, revealed a teenager who maintained remarkable composure despite occasional displays of emotion that never quite reached her eyes. She recounted hearing 3 distinct gunshots that woke her from a deep sleep, followed by the sound of someone moving through the house. "I was so scared I hid in my closet and didn't make a sound," she told Mitchell, her voice quavering appropriately. "I waited until I was sure they were gone before I came out and found Mom." When confronted with the Ring camera evidence during a follow-up interview, Emma's carefully constructed narrative began to show cracks. She initially claimed she might have gotten up to use the bathroom during the night, then suggested she sometimes left her light on while sleeping, before finally asserting that the camera must be mistaken about the timestamps. Detective Mitchell noted in his report that Emma's explanations evolved rapidly as each was contradicted by evidence, displaying a troubling ability to generate alternative scenarios on the fly. "Her adaptability suggests premeditation rather than panic," Mitchell wrote, as she appears to be selecting the most plausible explanation from a menu of preconsidered options. Forensic analysis of Williams' hunting rifle revealed it had been removed from his locked gun safe, which showed no signs of forced entry. The combination, according to Jennifer's sister, was Emma's birthday, a detail that both Emma and her mother would know, but that an intruder would have no way of discovering, especially in the limited time frame of a supposed break-in. The rifle's bolt-action mechanism required significant strength to operate, but testing confirmed that Emma, despite her slight build, could manage it with some effort, particularly with the adrenaline boost that would accompany such a high-stress situation. 3 spent shell casings recovered from Jennifer's bedroom floor matched the ammunition stored in the gun cabinet, further contradicting the intruder theory. The medical examiner's detailed report, completed 3 days after the murder, provided a chilling timeline of Jennifer Anderson's final moments. The first shot had struck her in the upper chest while she was lying down, likely asleep, penetrating her right lung, but not immediately killing her. The second and third shots had been fired from slightly different angles as Jennifer sat up and tried to protect herself, with the final shot entering her heart and causing almost instantaneous death. The report concluded that the killer had been standing at the foot of the bed for the first shot, then moved closer for the subsequent shots, executing them with deliberate aim rather than panic fire. Emma's schoolmates, interviewed as part of the expanding investigation, painted a picture of a teenage girl who had changed dramatically in recent months. Several friends described Emma as becoming increasingly secretive and withdrawn since the beginning of the school year, often canceling plans at the last minute and becoming defensive when questioned about her whereabouts. One friend, speaking on condition of anonymity, told investigators that Emma had been dating someone older, way older, like college age, but had refused to introduce him to any of her friends. This lead prompted Detective Mitchell to obtain Emma's social media and text message records, which would ultimately reveal the relationship at the heart of the case. As the investigation intensified, officers executed a search warrant on Emma's iPhone, recovering deleted text messages and social media communications that revealed both motive and premeditation. The messages, primarily exchanged with a 23-year-old man named Jake Mercer, detailed a sexual relationship that had been ongoing for approximately 3 months. The communications revealed that Jennifer had recently discovered the relationship and threatened to report Mercer to police for statutory rape, which in Montana carries a penalty of up to 100 years in prison if the victim is under 16 years of age. Emma had turned 17 just 2 weeks before the murder, but the relationship had begun when she was still 16, putting Mercer at significant legal risk. The neighbor's Ring camera footage, initially valuable for contradicting Emma's alibi, proved even more crucial when forensic technicians enhanced the video to reveal shadows moving past the bedroom window. By correlating these movements with cellular data showing Emma's phone accessing different Wi-Fi access points within the house, investigators could place her moving between her bedroom and her mother's room during the exact time frame when the murder occurred. This digital evidence, combined the physical evidence of blood spatter, clothing, and gunshot residue on Emma's hands, transformed what had initially appeared to be a tragic home invasion into something far more disturbing. A daughter's calculated decision to murder her mother rather than end a forbidden relationship. Detective Adrian Mitchell sat alone in the Billings Police Department's digital forensics lab, replaying the Ring doorbell footage for the 6th time in 2 hours. The snow-muted streetscape of the quiet residential neighborhood showed little activity in the pre-dawn hours of Christmas morning, but Emma Anderson's bedroom window told a different story. Mitchell had created a detailed timeline chart, noting each instance when a light went on or off. For 12 a.m. on, for 17 a.m. off, for 22 a.m. on again, and so on, in a pattern that suggested someone moving purposefully through the house rather than sleeping soundly, as Emma had claimed. The detective's experienced eyes caught something he had missed in previous viewings. A shadow passing by the window at 4:38 a.m., moving in the direction of Jennifer Anderson's bedroom at the back of the house. Forensic technicians processing the crime scene had recovered 3 shell casings from the bedroom floor, all positioned within a 6-foot radius that suggested a stationary shooter rather than someone moving defensively during a struggle. The blood spatter analysis told a story that contradicted Emma's account of an intruder. The patterns on the walls and ceiling indicated that all 3 shots had been fired from approximately the same position at the foot of Jennifer's bed, with no evidence of chaotic movement or struggle until after the first shot had been fired. Most damning was the cast-off blood pattern discovered on the sleeve of Emma's nightshirt hidden in the ventilation duct, which perfectly matched the arterial spray from Jennifer's final chest wound. Emma's gunshot residue test had come back positive on both hands, with particularly heavy concentrations on her right palm and between her thumb and forefinger, a distribution pattern consistent with firing a rifle rather than merely touching a wound site, as she had claimed. When confronted with these results during her second interview, Emma had offered a series of increasingly implausible explanations, from suggesting she must have touched the rifle after finding it in the yard to claiming she had helped her mother clean his guns the previous week. Detective Mitchell noted that Emma's explanations became more specific and technical as she realized the weakness of her position, demonstrating a calculated attempt to generate plausible deniability rather than genuine confusion. The turning point came when digital forensic specialists recovered deleted text messages from Emma's phone, revealing both a motive and a timeline that aligned perfectly with the Ring camera evidence. The messages exchanged with 23-year-old Jake Mercer painted a picture of a relationship that had crossed multiple boundaries: legal, ethical, and familial. My mom found out about us. Emma had written at 10:47 p.m. on December 23rd. She went through my phone while I was showering and saw our pics. She's furious and says she's going to police after Christmas. Mercer's response had been equally incriminating. "She can't do that to me. I'd lose everything. My job, my apartment, maybe go to prison. You have to talk her out of it." The exchange continued with increasing urgency, with Emma eventually texting. She said if she catches us together again, she's calling the cops on you for statutory. "I can't let that happen." Mercer's final message before the murder, sent at 11:52 p.m. on Christmas Eve, read, "Whatever happens, delete these messages and remember I love you. We'll figure something out." The cellular data from Emma's phone provided another layer of damning evidence, showing that despite her claim of being asleep until the gunshots, her phone had connected to different Wi-Fi access points within the house as she moved from room to room. At 4:36 a.m., the phone connected briefly to the kitchen access point, then at 4:40 a.m. to the hallway access point, before returning to the bedroom access point at 4:52 a.m. This digital trail aligned perfectly with the Ring camera's footage of lights turning on and off, creating an irrefutable timeline of Emma's movements through the house during the commission of the murder. During the execution of a search warrant on Emma's school locker, investigators discovered a notebook containing what appeared to be practice signatures of her mother's name. Dozens of attempts to perfect Jennifer Anderson's distinctive handwriting. This discovery prompted a forensic examination of Jennifer's financial documents, revealing that someone had attempted to set up a transfer of $50,000 from her retirement account to a newly created checking account just hours before the murder. The transfer had been flagged and held by the bank's fraud department due to the unusual timing and amount, preventing what investigators believed was Emma's attempt to secure funds for herself and Mercer after eliminating her mother. Jake Mercer, brought in for questioning 3 days after the murder, initially denied any knowledge of Jennifer Anderson's death beyond what he'd seen on local news. The 23-year-old shift manager at a local electronics store maintained that he and Emma were just friends and had never had a sexual relationship, a claim immediately contradicted by explicit photographs recovered from both their phones. When Detective Mitchell presented Mercer with the text message exchange about Jennifer threatening to contact police, Mercer's demeanor changed visibly, his earlier confidence giving way to nervous fidgeting and stammered responses that suggested consciousness of guilt. While Mercer denied any direct involvement in the murder itself, cell tower data placed his phone within half a mile of the Anderson home between 3:30 a.m. and 4:05 a.m. on Christmas morning, contradicting his alibi of being home alone sleeping. Further investigation revealed that Mercer had purchased a prepaid burner phone 3 days before the murder, which had connected to the cell tower nearest the Anderson home at 4:10 a.m. before being deactivated permanently. This evidence suggested that while Mercer may not have pulled the trigger, he had been in communication with Emma immediately before the crime and may have been waiting nearby, perhaps as a planned getaway driver. The weapon itself provided additional evidence pointing directly to Emma. The Remington 700 rifle, recovered from the snow in the Andersons' backyard, had been wiped clean of prints, but still contained microscopic skin cells and checkering of the wooden stock that DNA analysis matched to Emma. The gun safe from which the rifle had been taken showed no signs of forced entry, and the combination, Emma's birthday, would have been known only to her and her mother. Most telling was a methodical way the rifle had been operated. The bolt action had been worked smoothly between shots, the scope had been properly used for targeting, and the safety had been engaged before the weapon was discarded, all indicating someone familiar with the specific firearm. Emma's internet search history, recovered by digital forensics experts, revealed queries in the weeks leading up to the murder that suggested extensive premeditation. How long does gunshot residue last on skin? Can police trace deleted text messages? How to make murder look like break-in? And perhaps most chillingly, mother-daughter murder cases where daughter got away with it. These searches have been conducted in private browsing mode and later deleted, but were recoverable from the laptop's hard drive using specialized forensic tools. The systematic research into methods of concealing evidence demonstrated a level of planning that prosecutors would later cite as evidence of cold, calculated intent. With the evidence mounting, Detective Mitchell made the decision to formally arrest Emma Anderson for first-degree murder of her mother. The arrest took place at her aunt's home 7 days after the murder, with Emma showing little visible reaction as the detective read her Miranda rights. She seemed almost relieved, Mitchell would later testify, as if a weight had been lifted now that the pretense was over. Emma remained silent during the car ride to the juvenile detention center, staring out the window at the snow-covered streets of Billings, the city where she'd grown up and where she had, according to mounting evidence, methodically planned and executed the murder of her own mother. District Attorney Olivia Warren stood at the evidence board in the Billings prosecutor's office, methodically connecting the strings between photographs, phone records, and forensic reports that would form the backbone of the state's case against M. Stay tuned for the next part, where we explore the shocking trial and verdict.